Today we are celebrating a birthday because one of the most impactful systems in my life is turning 29, which is a horrible passage of time that I don't really want to think about. But we're talking today about the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 released on September 29th, 1996 in the United States, and this was a very impactful system on my life. So I'm just going to share some N64 memories. If you don't want to hear them, this is probably not the right video for you. So go check out another video or something like that. But I remember the first time I saw and played a Nintendo 64, I went over to my uncle's house, and he had just bought one for him and my cousin, and they had Super Mario 64. And I was absolutely blown away by this. Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing on the television because I'm coming off of a Sega Genesis, and that's a great system, but seeing like this 3D world and these 3D graphics and, the weird controller and stuff like that, the analog stick, which was a brand new thing at the time, like it was just a experience unlike anything else. And we played that game for a while. And then I remember my uncle was like, all right, let's go to Toys R Us. I want to get something else. So we hopped in the car. We went to Toys R Us. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of games for the system. It was still fairly new, and third-party developers were pretty slow getting games on the system initially, and Nintendo, launched the system with Pilot Wings and Super Mario 64. So we went to Toys R Us, and we were looking around, and he saw Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, and he was like, perfect. I'll never forget it. It was $74.99. And that just seemed so egregious at the time, like $75 for this N64 game. But we picked it up, and he picked it up, I should say. And we went back to the house and played that all night long. It was so much fun, and it was a system that I definitely wanted, but I just couldn't get at the time. So I remember I actually rented a Nintendo 64. It was like $10 from the local video game store that also rented movies and stuff like that, because you could rent systems at the time. I rented that with Super Mario 64. I popped the game in, and I would literally start the game up and then just stare at the screen, like outside of the castle, looking around, like searching every nook and cranny of the outdoor area, because it just felt like so mystical. It felt like nothing I had ever experienced before in my life. And I was like, are there hidden secrets out here? Is there something out here? And then once you go inside and you start going through the levels and the doors and all of that sort of stuff, just an absolutely magical thing. But time started to go on, and I remember that I really wanted to play Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. So come report card time, the final report card of the year, I did really well. And my parents and my grandparents, who came down to visit, decided to get me a Nintendo 64 and one game. So I remember it was still kind of hard to get a Nintendo 64, but they called around and found one at Best Buy. So I remember we all hopped in the car. Believe it was in my mom's Chrysler Cirrus. She had a gold Chrysler Cirrus, and we all hopped in the gold Chrysler Cirrus and went to Best Buy, and they still had it in stock. And I got that, and I got Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. And my parents let me play it on the larger screen downstairs. I had a very small TV in my bedroom that was like, I want to say it was 13 inches, but like the top half of it on the screen would like dip down. So sometimes there would be like lines, and you'd have to like punch the top of the TV to make it work. But they let me play Turok on like the 32-inch screen downstairs, 4x3. And it was just so awesome, man. Like seeing those dinosaurs and stuff. It was just absolutely insane to me how cool everything looked, how awesome everything looked, and, just how futuristic it really felt. And then I remember a little bit down the road, I had a good report card again, and my mom took me to Target and was like, you can get a game. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm looking around, and I see Castlevania, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a new Castlevania on the freaking N64. Let's go. This is going to be awesome. And so I chose Castlevania, and I remember playing that game, and initially I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't hate it as much as I do now as an adult because, it's the new game that you have. You kind of got to convince yourself things aren't that bad, but like I liked, like the big skeleton at the start of the game and like the skeletons on the bike. When you're a kid, that stuff is kind of cool. And there were elements of the game that I liked, like the hedge maze in the game, and the guys chasing you around with the chainsaw. Like, I thought that was really cool. And then I got to the Mandrake route section of the game, where you have to get a Mandrake route. And I believe it was a Mandrake route. I could be wrong on this. But you had to get a Mandrake route, which was on one side of this area. And you had to walk with the Mandrake route to the other side of the area to create like an elixir, and you couldn't jump and you couldn't fall with the Mandrake route, or else you would die. And that's where I got stuck. Like, I couldn't do it, and I was so enraged, and it really just it made me hate the game, because I was like, why did they do this? I can handle the wonky combat, I can handle the wonky camera angle, I can handle the wonky platforming, I can adjust to that. This I cannot adjust to. And that was as far as I ever got. And I remember I traded that game in for something else. And then, of course, we had subsequent rentals. And then the game came. Well, I should say the precursor to the game came out. But during that time, WCW's on and popping. Me and my buddy Pecker Dupree, we're watching it every Monday, either at my house or his house. We're watching all the pay-per-views. And WCW NWO World Tour comes out. And like, that was it, dog. That was it. Like, that was all we played. That was all we freaking played. And then WCW NWO Revenge came out. And then that was all we freaking played, because it was so much better than World Tour in terms of what you could do, in terms of the graphics, in terms of the characters, in terms of the updated roster and stuff. I can't imagine how much that game got played by myself and Pecker Dupree. Like, it has to be a ridiculous, like, we didn't care about like hanging out with people. We didn't want to hang out with girls or nothing for a while. We just wanted to play this. This was god tier gaming. Sting would come down from the rafters in a battle royal. Like, it was just so amazing, dude. It was so good. And then, of course, over time, I played more N64 games. And then, like you do with consoles from that era, you move on to other systems. But I do think the N64 always played a large role in my life. Oh, wait, I completely missed a story. Let me go back a little bit. So I remember I had a subscription to Nintendo Power, and I came home one day from school, and there was a box from Nintendo at the door. And I'm like, what is this? And so I bring the box inside and I open it, because it is addressed to me. The subscription was in my name. I open it up, and it's the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Collector's Edition, with the gold cartridge, the gold packaging and stuff like that. And I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, Nintendo sent me this because I'm a Nintendo Power subscriber. I remember I called my mom at work, and I was like, Ma, because I was like probably 12 at this time, maybe 13. I don't know. But I was like, Ma, they sent me it. Well, it was 98, right? If it was 98, I was 13. And I was like, Nintendo sent me the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Collector's Edition. I can't believe it. And she was like, are you an idiot? And I was like, what? And she was like, I bought that for you, and you weren't supposed to open it. And I was like, oh. Well, I mean, I've already opened the package, and I know it's here, so can I just go ahead and play it? And she was like, yeah. So, and I love that game, dude. That game was absolutely magical as well. But like, there were so many experiences on the N64 that were just so timeless to me, so impactful in my life. And even, as an adult, like, I remember back in 2006, I discovered No Mercy ROM hacking, where people were, adding new textures and new moves into the game and stuff like that. And like, I would play the SmackDown versus Raw games, but like, that was so cool to me as well. That was awesome. That was fresh. That was different. And I always can go back to the N64 and like have fun with games. I mean, there were so many rentals that I enjoyed, so many interesting games on the system. Of course, I wrote a book on N64 wrestling games that did very well. If you haven't picked up your copy yet, what are you waiting for, pal? I'll have a link in the description box down below. Go leave a 5-star review on Amazon when you buy it. But just an awesome system, dude. Just an awesome system. That, yes, it did have its drawbacks. You know, if we wanted to play RPGs, we were playing them at Pecker Dupree's house because he had the PlayStation 1 and I did not at the time. But, like, it just did things so differently. And I'm so glad that the system, like, came out. Like, yeah, could they have done things better on it? For sure. You know, maybe a CD drive would have been the right move, because if you combine the power of it with a CD drive and the analog controls, like, you know, does PlayStation ever really become the huge dominant brand that it is? You got to remember, Sony was working on the CD drive for the Super Nintendo, you know, so history could have been a lot different, and the current day gaming could have been a lot different as well. But I love the N64. I still play it all the time. I still play the new ROM hacks of N64 wrestling games. I literally have an N64 and I have a couch that goes like this. And like this portion, it's kind of like an L with like a little tail. And on the little tail, I have a small screen, my N64, and an EverDrive set up there. And like, you know, I got an HDMI modded N64, and I play my N64 on that, man. I love playing those wrestling games. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about the N64 for a little bit. Looks like we did that. We accomplished what we set out to do. What are your memories of the Nintendo 64? Let me know in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button. This video did go up early for channel members, so consider becoming a channel member today. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.